Good morning, and thank you for attending the second webinar in our series on Extranet Security Optimization with Premier Point Solutions. In this series, we plan to take about 20-25 minutes to show you some features that will help you secure your SharePoint Extranet. Also, as a reminder, each of our videos in this series we made available for viewing through GoToMeeting and YouTube so that you can share or revisit the information we're providing. I'm Mark Lewis, a support engineer at Premier Point Solutions, and I'll be your presenter today as we focus on extranet password strength and expiration policies. How can we enforce SharePoint password policies for extranet non-AD users? In today's webinar, we will show you how to set up your extranet password policies using Extranet Collaboration Manager, or EXCM. SharePoint plus EXCM is the perfect combination to secure your extranet. SharePoint natively supports users in AD, or Active Directory, meaning that your system's administrator is responsible for resetting passwords, setting password policies, and unlocking users, as well as all the maintenance of those users. But SharePoint also supports FBA, or forms-based authentication users. This allows you to add users in a separate SQL database that is managed outside of your AD and also utilizes SharePoint as an extranet that is fortified with the EXCM. So before we talk about how to set up our password policies, we need to have an understanding of some of the best practices for setting up password policies for our extranet users. I've listed what are some of the industry's recommended password best practices. Number one, maximum password age. This determines how long users can keep a password before they have to change it. The aim is to force users to change their passwords periodically. Generally, you use a shorter period when security is very important and a longer period when security is less important. Number two, maximum password length. This sets the minimum number of characters for a password. For security reasons, you'll generally want passwords of at least 8 characters because long passwords are usually harder to crack than short ones. If you want greater security, set the minimum password length to 14 characters or more. Number three, password complexity. This would include a password must have at least 8 characters. A password can't contain the username or parts of the username, such as his first name. And number three, a password must use at least 3 of the 4 available character types, meaning lowercase letters, uppercase letters, numbers, and symbols. And number 4, password encryption. This is the method of turning plain text password information into an unintelligible format. So now that we know some of the industry password best practices, how does it all work? How is the password data read so that we can validate that it meets the password policy standards we put in place? This is done by using a regular expression, or regex. A regular expression is a search pattern or algorithm used for matching one or more characters within a string. It can match ranges of characters, specific characters, and wildcats. Here are some common examples of matching a password using regular expressions. As you'll see here, the top one we have here, the expression that they have in place allows you where you can set up it must contain 1 digit from 0 to 9. The second expression sets it up so that it has must contain 1 lowercase character. The third shows that it must contain 1 uppercase character. And then you have the next expression must contain 1 special symbol in the list that is shown. And the last one is an expression that shows the length of at least 6 characters and a maximum of 18 characters. Again, whenever you look at this, these variables can be changed for your system. Regular expressions can be much more complex than these examples, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how EXM password policies work with SharePoint to implement and use your password policies for your extranet. The best part is that by using EXM's general application menu, you can add these regular expressions to your password policy by simply making a few choices, then clicking Save. It's that easy. So now let's look at how we can implement these best practices in a SharePoint-based extranet using EXM. Number one, we will look at how to define password strength policies. And number two, we will look at how to define password expiration policies. EXM provides a management tool that will allow you to set up the appropriate password strength policy and the ability to set up a password expiration policy for extranet users, thus making for a more safe and secure extranet. EXM works alongside SharePoint to automate the experience so that an administrator does not have to manually monitor the strength of the password or the frequency of when an extranet user changes or updates their passwords. When using the SharePoint in conjunction with EXM to manage an extranet, your external users are stored in a SQL database and managed outside of your AD. The first feature we're going to show today is how to set up your password strength policy using the EXM General Application Settings menu. Since your internal users are stored in AD and your external users are stored in a SQL database, it becomes important to configure the rules around their passwords just as you would through your Active Directory. Using the General Application Settings menu, you can set up the length of your password, if the password is case sensitive, or if it requires a numeric or special characters. We can also set up the maximum failed attempts for the password so that the user is automatically locked out of the site if they have forgotten their password or if an unauthorized user attempts to log in using someone else's account. So let's take a look at how simple it is to configure your password strength policy with EXM. So at this point, we've actually come into our central administration. As you can see, this is the normal layout that you would see with central admin. If we go down here to the left, we'll be going to our general application settings. And you'll notice that within the general application settings, down near the bottom here, we have an Extranet Collaboration Manager menu tool that has been put in place. Again, our product, we have set it up so that it is part of SharePoint. It has the same look as SharePoint. You're going to the same menus that you normally would with central admin to come find this. So as we look at the menu for EXM, we'll go over here to our password policy. And you'll notice we'll have some choices here. The first one, we'll need to select our web application. So we'll get our AW Bikes. This is EXT for our extranet. And you'll notice that I already have in place a minimum password length of 8 characters. And I have checked require at least 1 numeric character. And then at the bottom, under the password security, we actually had it set to a minimum number of failed attempts of 10. And we've also enabled security question and answer for password recovery so that a user would have the option if they were locked out or if they could not log in, they could answer the security question that has been previously set up to reset their password. Now you will notice also that as we go to the minimum password length that we had talked earlier that the longer that password is, the more secure that it would be. For our example today, I'm going to set this at 10. I'll go ahead and require that there be upper and lowercase characters. And of course, since we already have the one numeric character, I'll come in and require at least one special character to go along with that. Now you'll notice down below here with the password strength regular expression that is in place, this is where you could actually go in and manually change or add an expression that you have, a regular expression that you need for your password policy. In our particular case, we're going to go and set the failed attempts at 3, so we'll make that change in the system. Maybe 10 is just, we just feel that security-wise that's just too many attempts as we do that. So we've made the changes. Again, it's been very simple as we've come in to our password policy using our general application settings. In a lot of cases, because we're doing this, or for most cases, we would not have to go in here and manually change anything within our web config file to make this work. We've given you the tools to check what you need, and again, it's very easy to make those changes. After we've done that, we'll click OK. And within EXM, you'll see that with our box down here, that it has made the changes. And a lot of times, sometimes it will allow some time for these changes to take place. But to kind of give you an example, we'll go to one of our registration forms. And you'll notice that, of course, within here, whenever you're adding, you can add an email address. But if we're looking at the password itself, let's go and put something in. And you'll notice as we do this, we have a strength bar. And I have put in the characters so that we have a strong password. Again, it's letting the user know if their password has the strength that they need. If it does not meet the strong capabilities within this monitor, then they would not be able to use that particular password. And of course, you would then confirm that password and go from there. Again, just to show you how easy it is to go in using EXM to set up these password policies for the strength, which of course includes the length, the regular expression, capability of making a change, and the failed attempts. So let's go back to our presentation here. So our next one is your password expiration policy. Your password expiration policy is determined by the policy your company has in place for the allowed age of the password, the password expiration notifications, and the frequency of those notifications that can be set up within the General Applications menu. Next, we would like to walk you through using your Central Administration General Application menu to set up your password expiration policies. So if we go back again to our general application settings, we were just at password policy earlier. We're going to go to our expiration policies. Again, it will be asking for the web application. So we'll select that. And you'll notice when we pull this up that within here, within the menu we provide, there is an account expiration that can be looked at. But again, for our presentation today, we're looking at our password expiration policy and how we can make changes. So within this, obviously, you can disable this if you needed to. Obviously, we would say that that might not be a great idea for security or for notifying your users if they need to change a password or if the password is outdated. But in our particular case, we have it set at 14 days to disable the account if the password is older than 14 days, that is. And we also have it set so it will send a notification before the password expires, which is set out at 3 days. Again, you can change that variable. And then we have repeat the expiration notification every day in our particular case. Again, that's a lot. Very easy to come in here and say that our password is 90 days. We want them to get a notification 14 days ahead of time and every 2 days after that. And of course, you can set up your recurring schedule for this. The great thing about this is each one of these, when it is set up, will be sending an email out to the user to let them know that, okay, their account is reaching its maximum days, or their password is reaching the maximum number of days that it can be used. They're also receiving the notification, again, on a whatever basis that you determine is best, so that they know ahead of time that they need to make a change. And we can repeat this. Now, I have an example of one of the emails that we have that would go out with the one as far as letting them know that their password will be expiring. We have a password approaching that has went out, and we see your password on the AW Bytes root site is set to expire on 1/17/2018. So again, this is one of the emails that would go out, a notification that you could give your user to let them know that they need to make a change. Now, I will tell you that if a user lets their password expire, they are locked out of the account. And in that particular case, an administrator, a extranet manager, or a site sponsor, if they are given the ability, can go in and unlock that account. At this time, we'll take any questions and see if we can answer any questions that you might have. Again, we try to cover the basics of how you can utilize EXCM to set up these policies. Okay, I do have one question that's come in from Jose. Can the password be set per site collection, or do they have to be set per web application? That's a good question, Jose. Yes, the password policies can only be set globally in the web application. They cannot be set per site for this. Any other questions? I've got another question here from Wanda. Once a person is locked out, Wanda, that's actually one I just got through talking about, but we'll go over that again. Once a person is locked out after a failed attempt, does the admin have to unlock them? And again, like I said before, it's still a very good question to go back over, because a lot of people wonder about that. Either an administrator, an extranet account manager, or a site sponsor, if they've been given the security to do that, would have to go and unlock that account if that were to happen. Any other questions that we might have? Well, just as a reminder, this is the second in our 7-part series that we're doing for the extranet security optimization. We will have another one on February the 21st, which is titled, How Can We Have a SharePoint Extranet Without Storing Extranet Users in AD? And we're looking forward, again, to having you sign up for that. Also, as another reminder that the video series that we're doing, these will be available through GoToMeeting. Most of you will be receiving an email with a link to that. And we are also publishing these out on YouTube. If there are no other questions, we do appreciate and thank you very much for being in our webinar. If you need to contact us, obviously you can go to www.premierpointsolutions.com, or you can contact me personally, Mark, at premierpointsolutions.com. We appreciate your time and have a great day.